In the 1970s, when there was a demand to make Pondicherry a state, the then Prime Minister Morarji Desai had derisively remarked, "You are not even fit to be a municipality." True, with 10 lakh voters, there are fewer voters in this union territory compared to many municipalities in Tamil Nadu. Yet, Puducherry, as it is known today, has its own assembly, and there are 30 MLAs who are now contesting the elections like their counterparts in the big brother Tamil Nadu. This former French colony remains a Congress bastion, and the DMK and ADMK, who are such big players in neighboring Tamil Nadu, are only bit players here. The Congress government, led by V. Narayanasamy, was blindsided and brought down by defections and rebellion just a few weeks before the elections, resulting in President's rule. Blaming Narayanasamy for his hubris, which cost it the government, the Congress has denied the former Chief Minister, who was also a Minister of State in the PMO of Manmohan Singh government, a ticket to contest this election. BJP has wooed A. Namasivayam, the number 2 man in Narayanasamy government, and then it has formed an alliance with V. Rangasamy, a former Congress leader who went on to form the NR Congress and also captured power in 2011 to rule for 5 long years. Along with ADMK and PMK, the BJP hopes that it will put up a very strong fight to form a coalition government in Puducherry.
The West Bengal state elections 2021 has been an exceptional and unprecedented election in the history of the state. Prime Minister Narendra Modi came here 26 times to address political gatherings ahead of and during the electoral campaign. This is the highest time a Prime Minister has visited West Bengal to address political rallies ahead of elections. But it is not only about Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Union Home Minister Amit Shah visited the Bengal a similar number of times, and then add to this the number of central ministers, union ministers. However, it is not the BJP's exceptional and intense campaign that makes this election an unprecedented one. It is also the first time that the state election has seen economic issues overshadowed by communally polarizing campaign. It was not just about Hindus and Muslims. It was about identity politics all around within the Hindu community. It was about addressing the Dalits. It was about addressing the Adivasis. All small caste groups and even smaller castes within castes, they were all addressed separately in this election, and by both sides, by the TMC and by the BJP. Among all these optics, what drew the attention of most of the people, or perhaps was the most spectacular of scenes during this campaign, was Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee campaigning, doing her entire campaign on a wheelchair. She got injured while campaigning in her own constituency, Nandigram, early in March, and thereafter she announced from her hospital bed that she will be out soon and she will be campaigning on a wheelchair. The BJP leaders, senior BJP leaders, had frequently hinted that she might be playing a drama to gain votes in sympathy. And Dilip Ghosh repeatedly said that no sympathy will be working in her favor due to whatever she was trying. Nevertheless, this will remain as an image that will be representative of the 2021 assembly elections.
The Assam elections for the 126 seats saw a very close contest. The contest was mainly between the two alliances led by the BJP, ruling BJP, and the Congress. The BJP has with it the Assam Gana Parishad and the United People's Party Liberal, which is based in the Bodoland territorial region. The Congress, on the other hand, has 7 allies, the chief being the AIUDF and the Bodoland People's Front. The Bodoland People's Front is actually an ally of the BJP in the outgoing assembly. But the BJP ditched the party just ahead of these elections. As has been the trend always in Assam, the Muslim and the T-tribe votes would play a significant role. The two groups together hold sway over about 60 seats, which is quite significant given the halfway mark is 63. What would be interesting to watch also this time is how the CA or the Citizenship Amendment Act has worked, whether it goes in favor of the Congress AIUDF alliance or in favor of the BJP by the electorate taking no heed of it. It must be remembered that there was widespread opposition to the CA in 2019, leading to the death of at least 5 protesters in police firing. The protest was revived again in December 2020, and obviously the BJP had received a lot of flack. Actually, the fate of the CA would depend on the results of these elections, even though it is a central law.
As the countdown begins, the state is waiting with bated breath for the results. This election is crucial for all the 3 main players in the fray. If the CPM-led LDF manages to come back to power this time, it will be creating history of sorts. The state has a reputation of not repeating its governments in every 5 years. That has been the tradition for the last 40 years. If the CPM manages to break that tradition, this is going to be a historic win for the party. Even for the Congress, it's a do or die battle this time. If it fails to snatch power from the CPM this time, it will be major embarrassment for the party because it has a major presence in Kerala compared to other southern states. Its senior leader and former President Rahul Gandhi is a parliamentarian from Wayanad who has also actively campaigned in the state this time. For the BJP too, it's a high-stake battle because it's been looking to expand its footprints in the state for the last many years. It has also roped in eminent personalities like E. Sridharan. The state has also seen a high-octane campaign by all the parties. While the CPM campaign centered mainly around its development initiatives in the past 5 years, be it in the field of education, health, or infrastructure development. It was also riding high on Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan's strongman image and how he handled crisis situations like floods, Nipah, and the pandemic. Overall, it has been an interesting campaign which the state witnessed.
For over 5 decades, Tamil Nadu has been ruled by 2 regional parties, the DMK and the ADMK. And this time too, it was a head-on clash between these 2 Dravidian majors, with one difference though. Their 2 stalwarts, Karunanidhi and Jayalalitha, were not around to lead their election campaign. Instead, the DMK was piloted by the chosen heir, M.K. Stalin, and Edappadi K. Palaniswamy, the accidental chief minister who surprised everyone by remaining in power for 4 years in spite of numerous challenges. Palaniswamy also surprised everyone by handling the first wave of the corona very competently with a hands-on approach using the famed health infrastructure of Tamil Nadu and reaching relief to all those who were affected. His handling of the pandemic became a selling point for the ADMK, which asked the people to vote for the good work done by his government, especially the waiver of cooperative farm loans for the farmers during the fag end of his government. On the DMK side, Stalin attacked Palaniswamy for giving a corrupt government, for maladministration, and for being subservient to the BJP in Delhi. Palaniswamy countered by saying that the DMK was promoting dynastic politics as Stalin's son and Karunanidhi's grandson, Udayinidhi Stalin, led more than a dozen candidates of the DMK who were related to big leaders of the party. Since elections in Tamil Nadu have become synonymous with freebies, both the parties competed with each other to woo the voters, especially women. So the DMK was the first to say that it will give a monthly allowance of rupees 1,000 to housewives. The ADMK improved it to 1,500. When the DMK promised that it will give free bus travel to women, the ADMK said it will give 50% concession to them. And when the ADMK assured that it will give 6 LPG cylinders free for every household, the DMK countered saying it will give 100 rupees subsidy to every LPG cylinder. The ADMK capped it all by promising that it will deliver a washing machine to every household. The DMK, this is a do or die battle, for it has been out of power both at the state and in the center, and it needs to recapture power in the state to remain politically relevant in Tamil Nadu. For the ADMK, it has to overcome 10 years of anti-incumbency and the absence of a strong leader like Jayalalitha.